how Joseph of Egypt governed the richest and most prosperous nation of his time. I'm going to show you the surprising and effective financial strategies from the life of Joseph of Egypt that can still be learned and practiced in this century. These strategies have the power to minimize the effects of economic crises and financial difficulties, increasing your chances of achieving a richer and more prosperous financial life. These are teachings that have prevented financial disasters for many people who applied these strategies, providing peace and tranquility even in difficult times. Joseph of Egypt is considered by many to be the greatest political leader of all time. He is widely known for his visionary strategies that saved Egypt from a devastating financial crisis during a period of famine. Joseph's actions are often cited as examples of prudent management and strategic planning. How did he reach the position of governor general? Joseph began his rise to power by interpreting Pharaoh's dreams, which predicted 7 years of abundance followed by 7 years of famine. This interpretation was his trump card, as it provided Pharaoh with a clear and early vision of the impending crisis. He was in the right place at the right time, ascending to the position of governor in an Egypt that, in comparison, was wealthier than the United States of America today, with no major competitors in geopolitical disputes. Joseph could not afford to fail. If he made a mistake, the whole world would suffer. So he acted, planning and storage during years of abundance. With the prediction of 7 years of abundance, Joseph proposed a systematic grain storage plan. During these years, he collected a fifth of Egypt's grain production and stored it in large granaries in cities. This preventive measure ensured that Egypt had sufficient reserves to face the years of scarcity. Centralization of control and resource distribution. During the years of famine, Joseph centralized the distribution of grain. He sold the stored grain to Egyptians and to people from neighboring lands who came to Egypt in search of food. This not only saved the population from hunger, but also transformed Egypt into a regional economic hub, increasing its power and influence. Acquisition of land and livestock. As the famine intensified, Egyptians began to deplete their monetary resources. In exchange for food, Joseph accepted land and livestock. Eventually, this led to the centralization of land ownership under Pharaoh's control, further consolidating the wealth and power of the Egyptian state. Implementation of a taxation system. As part of the economic reorganization, Joseph established a taxation system in which farmers had to give a fifth of their future crops to Pharaoh. This ensured a continuous flow of resources to the government, even after the crisis, allowing for a faster and more sustainable economic recovery. You might find this a high tax rate. Ask your European friend about taxation or research the consumption tax burden in some places today. Tax rates in some parts of the world can be double that. Efficient and fair administration. Joseph's administration was characterized by efficiency and fairness. He ensured that everyone had access to the necessary resources to survive, regardless of their social status. This approach helped maintain social stability and confidence in the government during difficult times. Promotion of unity and cooperation. Joseph also promoted unity and cooperation among the different regions and peoples under his rule. He coordinated the efforts of various communities to ensure that everyone had access to the stored resources, avoiding internal conflicts and strengthening social cohesion. Joseph's strategies are a classic example of prudent management and strategic vision in times of crisis. His ability to plan ahead, centralize resources, implement fair and efficient systems, and promote unity were crucial in saving Egypt from a devastating crisis and ensuring its long-term prosperity. Who was Joseph of Egypt? Joseph, the favorite son of Jacob, had a life full of twists and turns. Joseph was born in the Mesopotamian city of Haran. At the age of 6, he left Haran with his family and traveled to the land of Canaan, settling in Hebron. When he was born, his father was already elderly and gifted him with a specially made coat. This sparked feelings of jealousy among his brothers. These negative feelings grew when Joseph shared 2 of his dreams with them, in which he was shown ruling over his brothers. In the first dream, the brothers were gathering wheat in the field, and their sheaves were smaller than Joseph's. In the second dream, Joseph envisioned the sun, moon, and 11 stars, symbolizing his parents and brothers, bowing down to him. Shortly after, when Joseph was 17, tensions reached their peak. One day, Jacob instructed Joseph to visit his brothers in Shechem, where they were tending their flock. Little did he know that he would not see his beloved son again for 22 years. Seizing the opportunity, the brothers threw the innocent Joseph into a pit. Soon after, they saw an Arab caravan passing by and sold Joseph to the merchants. He was eventually taken to Egypt, where he was sold to Potiphar, one of Pharaoh's ministers. Things began to improve for young Joseph. The divine allowed him to find favor in his master's eyes, and he was appointed chief of Potiphar's estate. But this did not last long. Attracted by his handsome appearance, Potiphar's wife desired to have intimate relations with Joseph, but he always refused to engage in this act with her. One day, when no one else was home except the two of them, she grabbed Joseph's garment, demanding that he lie with her. Thinking quickly, Joseph shed his cloak and ran outside. This act of self-control earned him the nickname Joseph the Just. Potiphar's wife completely changed her version of the events, telling her husband that it was Joseph who tried to seduce her. Furious, her husband reacted by placing his trusted assistant in prison. Joseph's charisma followed him even in prison, and the jailer soon appointed him as his assistant. Over time, his unique qualities were expressed when the king's cupbearer and baker were imprisoned and placed under his care. Joseph successfully interpreted their dreams, correctly predicting that the cupbearer would be released and the baker would be hanged. 2 years later, Pharaoh himself had two dreams that none of his advisors could explain. Remembering the young Hebrew from his prison days, the cupbearer suggested that Joseph be called. At 30 years old, Joseph interpreted Pharaoh's dreams as a divine prediction of 7 years of abundance followed by 7 years of famine, and advised Pharaoh to prepare by storing grain during the first 7 years. Impressed by Joseph's wisdom, Pharaoh appointed him as the viceroy of Egypt, second only to Pharaoh himself, and tasked him with preparing the nation for the 7 years of famine. The year was 1667 BC, Anno Mundi 2229. Joseph governed all of Egypt, the most prosperous nation on earth, with wealth surpassing that of the United States of America today. Joseph's 3 pillars for governing and becoming rich and prosperous. Pillar 1. Clear and revealed identity. Joseph's governance was grounded in a clear and revealed identity, which led to his prosperity. This identity is defined by the following concepts. 1.1 Feeling loved. The awareness of divine love provided the confidence needed to face challenges. Even in the midst of great difficulties, Joseph felt loved and knew that these experiences were preparing him for great accomplishments. 1.2 Intimacy with the Creator. A deep connection with the Creator guided his decisions and actions, providing leadership rooted in values and principles. Note: if you believe you are an evolution of the ancestral cousin of the monkey, these items might not make sense to you, but stay with us because the other items will help you a lot. 1.3 Correct positioning. Understanding his purpose and positioning himself correctly in the face of challenges ensured a solid foundation. This allowed him to withstand daily tests, knowing what he could and could not do, understanding himself and knowing the people he governed. He knew exactly how to position himself during one of the greatest droughts of his time, which affected the entire land. 1.4 Defined purpose. The key to Joseph's strategy. A defined purpose can guide effective decisions and strategies in times of crisis. With his clear vision and well-outlined purpose, Joseph not only saved Egypt from a devastating famine crisis, but also transformed the country into a powerful economic center. From the beginning, Joseph had unwavering clarity about his goals. He aimed not only for immediate survival but also for Egypt's long-term prosperity. This broad vision guided his choices and strategies, ensuring that each decision contributed to a greater and more meaningful objective. During the 7 years of abundance, Joseph implemented a meticulous grain storage plan. When the famine arrived, he was prepared to sell this food to both the Egyptian people and neighboring nations that came to Egypt in search of provisions. Joseph established fair and efficient negotiation terms, ensuring that Egypt not only survived but also thrived economically during the crisis. Transparency and fairness in negotiation terms. Joseph ensured that the terms of sale were transparent and fair, maintaining the trust of the Egyptian people and neighboring nations. He set prices and conditions that reflected necessity and scarcity but were also accessible and reasonable, avoiding exploitation and distrust. Establishment of distribution centers. To facilitate the sale and distribution of food, Joseph created strategic centers throughout Egypt. These centers ensured that access to stored grain was efficient and well organized, avoiding chaos and ensuring that all regions had adequate supplies. National security and resource management. Joseph understood that famine could destabilize not only the economy but also national security. He implemented rigorous measures to protect stored resources and ensure that Egypt's goods were managed efficiently and securely. Protection of granaries. Joseph placed guards and implemented security systems to protect the grain warehouses from potential theft and looting. This measure ensured that supplies were preserved for proper distribution during the years of scarcity. Centralization of control. To avoid corruption and misuse of resources, Joseph centralized control of food distribution. He personally oversaw operations, ensuring that the grain was distributed according to need and established plans. Impact on neighboring nations. Joseph's vision extended beyond Egypt's borders. He knew that famine did not respect territorial boundaries and that neighboring nations would also suffer. By selling grain to other nations, Joseph not only saved millions of lives but also positioned Egypt as a regional leader, strengthening alliances and increasing the country's influence. Diplomacy through trade. The sale of grain to other nations was conducted diplomatically. Joseph used these transactions to strengthen diplomatic and commercial relationships, ensuring that Egypt became a valuable and respected ally in the region. Humanitarian support. Joseph also adopted a humanitarian approach in his negotiations, offering assistance to countries in extreme need. This strategy solidified Egypt's position as a benevolent and protective leader in the international community. The defined purpose of Joseph of Egypt. Joseph's clearly defined purpose was the foundation upon which he built all his strategies and decisions. His clarity of vision, alignment with broad objectives, and implementation of practical and just measures turned a potentially catastrophic crisis into an opportunity for growth and strengthening for Egypt. Joseph exemplified how visionary leadership, guided by a clear purpose, can not only overcome adversities, but also build a lasting legacy of prosperity and influence. 1.5 Ready to serve. Joseph's willingness to serve, even in difficult times, demonstrated his leadership geared towards the common good. Despite spending a period in prison, Joseph did not let this undermine his readiness to serve. 1.6 Resilient to the environment. His ability to maintain integrity in challenging environments strengthened his leadership. Joseph's mind remained shielded, even with the despair of many. He remained protected by the vision of the future he received and did not allow others to contaminate his governing environment with complaints. Pillar 2. Influence. The second pillar was to exert influence positively, based on 2.1 Knowing how to influence the environment. Joseph of Egypt's skill. Joseph of Egypt teaches valuable lessons about leadership, strategic vision, and the ability to positively influence the environment around him. With his innate administrative talent and deep understanding of human nature, Joseph knew how to impact his surroundings constructively, promoting changes that not only saved Egypt, but also elevated it to a new level of prosperity. Joseph implemented systemic changes and worked to create an environment of cooperation, trust, and respect. He understood that collaboration and high morale were essential to the success of his initiatives. Engaging the population. Joseph actively involved the Egyptian population in the grain storage process, creating a sense of collective responsibility. He explained the importance of the plan transparently, gaining the people's support and trust. Leading by example. Joseph led by example, showing dedication, ethics, and commitment. His integrity and competence inspired respect and loyalty among Pharaoh's officials and ordinary citizens alike. Smart and efficient work. Joseph knew that hard work alone was not enough. It was necessary to work smartly, using resources efficiently and maximizing results. Efficient resource management. During the years of abundance, Joseph implemented efficient methods of collecting and storing grain, minimizing waste, and ensuring the quality of the reserves. His meticulous vision ensured that resources were used optimally. Innovation and adaptation. Joseph was always attentive to new ideas and practices that could improve existing processes. His willingness to innovate and adapt to circumstances changed how Egypt handled crises, turning challenges into opportunities. Positive change and progress. Joseph's ability to influence his environment was not limited to crisis management. He also promoted lasting positive progress, creating a solid foundation for Egypt's future. Economic and social reforms. Under Joseph's leadership, Egypt implemented economic and social reforms that strengthened the country's structure. These changes created a more resilient environment prepared to face future adversities. Establishment of new standards. Joseph introduced new management and governance standards that continued to benefit Egypt long after his time. His systematic and strategic vision became a model for future leaders and administrators. 2.2 Confidence in decisions. Confidence in making decisions was crucial for effective leadership during a challenging time. Any wrong decision could have been costly and could have led to the deaths of millions affected by famine. But Joseph minimized all this with wise decisions. 2.3 Integrity and justice. Acting with integrity and justice consolidated his position as a respected world leader. 2.4 Prosperity thinking. A prosperity-oriented mindset shaped his strategies and actions, always thinking that everything had already succeeded. Pillar 3. Wisdom. The third pillar highlighted the importance of wisdom, evidenced by 3.1 Using wisdom at the right time. The ability to apply wisdom in the right situations differentiated his leadership. 3.2 Loyalty. Loyalty to his convictions and values was the basis for making ethical decisions. 3.3 Humility. Humility allowed him to learn and evolve, which is essential for lasting leadership. 3.4 Patience. The exercise of patience demonstrated emotional control, crucial in challenging situations. 3.5 Clarity. Clarity in visions and goals enabled effective communication with his team. 3.6 Empathy. The ability to put oneself in another's shoes promoted healthy and efficient relationships. 3.7 Intentionality. Intentionality guided his actions, aligning them with the desired results. Governing emotions is a constant learning process. While governing, Joseph learned to govern not only over nations but also over his own emotions. This journey of self-discovery and constant learning was fundamental to building solid, prosperous, and emotionally intelligent leadership. These were some of the pillars Joseph used to govern himself, prosper personally, and govern the richest nation of his time, making it more prosperous even in times of crisis. Thank you for your company so far, and I'll see you in the next video.